Welcome to another episode of Count Me In, where today we're joined by a very special guest, Timothy Wingate, the insightful founder and president of GF Business and Financial Consulting, LLC. With his extensive expertise in construction accounting, Timothy delves into the complexities of interdepartmental communication, focusing on crucial links between back-office operations and finance teams. In our conversation, Timothy unpacks the transformative impact of technology in streamlining communication and shares effective strategies for safeguarding financial data. Whether you're in the construction industry or keen on enhancing team collaboration and financial management within your organization, this episode offers valuable insight and actionable advice from a seasoned pro. Let's get started. Well, Timothy, I'm so happy to have you on the podcast today as we're going to be talking about communication between your organization with your back office and your finance team. And that communication is difficult at times. And so maybe we can talk about some common challenges that are faced when you have your back office staff, your people in the field, or your people in the warehouse, or wherever the different teams are located. That communication can be difficult at times. And maybe you can talk about some common challenges that happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of challenges. Number one is just getting the right code on a receipt. Just the basics of that. And it requires two people to be communicating, consistently and frequently. So you have to build out systems or channels where that communication can live. So that way we know exactly where to seek out that information. And sometimes it's the accounting team reaching out to someone in office, or reaching directly to the manager themselves, or in my case, I do construction accounting. So it may be reaching directly out to the project manager, or making sure that they're familiar with the systems that we are using to capture that information. And they maybe have some challenges there. So we need to maybe do a training on how to use the system. So therefore we can get this information from them that we need.
That makes a lot of sense because, we're well beyond the days of the interoffice memo that's in one of those little envelopes that you wrap it up and you have to put your name on it and you send it out.
Right.
We're well beyond those days, right? So, what are some ways that we can leverage technology to kind of help improve that? You mentioned it's between two people, but, sometimes teams are 10, 20, 30 people. How do you utilize that technology so you can effectively have that good communication?
Yeah. So, one of the good things is sometimes when you have meetings like we're having today on a Zoom platform or a Google Meet, one of those platforms, using a note taker, it becomes a very good tool to use because it's capturing, everything that's being said. So that way we can now go back and revisit some things that was mentioned, and we don't have to, bother the person who was in the meeting physically. We can just go back to them digitally and get that information. So that's one strategy that we use. Another strategy is to actually use receipt capture technology. Mm-hmm. So getting the receipts captured by the team and then having them to upload it. So now we have that information, they have that information, and then we can go from coding from there. So just using the technology that's available on our smartphones and those apps is just a great way to speed up communication and to also get the right communication going. Those are the two primary ways. And then, of course, you can go a little bit archaic with email and text messages, but we try to stay away from text messages because they get lost. It's not efficient, loss in communication, loss in translation, those type of things. So Dex is a receipt capture tool that we use, and I like that tool a lot. And then we use a note taker called Fireflies, where we can capture all the information on those meetings, so that way we're not missing something, or we can go back and reference it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, gone are the days of having to have your notebook out and trying to quickly take notes, and you can get in there and just have the AI make a summary for you. And then you're like, okay, that is what we did cover that. And even some of them even give you next steps, which is amazing.
It does.
One of the things that I've enjoyed, we implemented a receipt type, like a new system. Because I remember when you go on a business trip, you'd have to fill out an Excel spreadsheet, maybe take pictures of things. Now you just, upload them in there, put the code in there, submit it, boom, bang, boom.
Yep.
You're already there. And I think it's really cut down on the time it takes. And so people really don't have excuses. I can't get that to you. All you got to do is take 2 seconds, take a picture and upload it. Boom, you're done. So I think that's really advanced the way we communicate with each other.
Yeah, it is. It's really advanced. And, we still haven't gotten rid of the spreadsheet because, of course, people still miss taking receipts, pictures of receipts. So we get in there and start coding accounts and realize like, hold on, we don't have a receipt for this. So now we have to send them a spreadsheet report, but we're using different, I guess, systems. Like for Google Sheets, you can use Google Sheets where now it becomes collaborative and they don't have to download anything. They can work together on it. You can see things being updated real time. So the way that those sheets are being used looks a little different now, all cloud-based. So those type of things. So using that type of technology or those type of softwares is something to be, sought after now. It's like, I want to use this. I want to be up to date with that instead of taking the Microsoft Excel, downloading it, filling it in, saving it, and then uploading it back. So those days are kind of over.
Well, and then realizing that somebody else updated the same sheet and you guys both updated at different times and you have to reconcile it and figure out who made what changes.
Right. So definitely trying to stay away from that. So slowly but surely we're getting away from that as well with our reporting.
One thing that I think the accounting and finance team doesn't talk about enough is, when you're working with people who are not in accounting or finance, they don't necessarily understand the importance of, your financial information, keeping it accurate, keeping it safe and all that stuff. Are there some strategies that you've implemented to kind of share the importance of that with people who are not financial and saying, hey, this is are there any ways that you've kind of ensure that you're sharing the real-time data is very important? And what are some strategies you've used to do that?
Now, make sure I understand. Are you saying with the client per se, or just within our office?
Either way, either with your client that you're working with or internal office, because there's people who there's people in your office who may not be with finance or connected to finance. So what are some strategies you work with to educate them in the best way of sharing this data and the importance of it?
Yeah, so we do a lot of trainings. So we train all the time on how to share data. We have SOPs on how to share data, keep data, store data. We use a system, like a gatekeeper, which is called Practice Protect. So Practice Protect is something that we use where everybody logs into Practice Protect to get access to everything else in the company. So it allows everything to be protected that way. And we use a lot of different technology that has their own, protections in place, like the, two-factor authentication. So just making sure that everything that you have access to, that you also need, an authenticator attached to it. So that when you log in, it's asking you for that code. It's telling you to put this in, put that in. So that's how you protect that information. And so we just try to explain the same thing with the clients. Hey, make sure you have two-factor authentications. Make sure that, we get away from a lot of paper, because paper, holds a lot of valuable information that can just be easily swiped or burned or stolen. So move from paper, get things into the cloud. So start, moving those file cabinets onto the cloud is one of the safest things that you could do, because that information now becomes protected. You can put all types of firewalls in place to protect that information instead of just having it laying around where someone could just break into your office, or an employee can just walk in and take something out of a file cabinet. You don't even know what they're taking until something happens, and you discover it.
That is truly important. It's funny, if you watch spy movies, they're like, I can't find any of their information on the cloud to hack it. Oh no, they keep it in a filing cabinet, and then they have to break into somewhere and steal a filing cabinet. Yeah. That's like the new joke in these movies, but it is very important to have access to all your data no matter where you are. And and with all the new technologies out there, nothing's unhackable, unfortunately, but we do all the best practices that we can to make sure that it stays that way. But it also allows you to be you can be at your home in Florida or be somewhere in Colorado and still access your data and be able to help work wherever you are, which is important.
Man, it's the way I live. My entire practice is virtual. So everyone who works for me works for some remote location. I got, people who are in Ohio, in California. Not California, North Carolina. Okay. And then they're here in Florida. So, but some of us, met only once or twice. in person. So it's a different world today. And to me, I think it has opened up businesses to be able to compete on a larger scale because you're not bound to your local demographic. And so you can serve different communities and you can receive help from different communities.
No, it's great. It's great how we've been able to shrink the world in a way by the way we're able to connect, which is truly important.
Yeah, we did.
So, we can't talk about communicating with the field office or clients and like that without talking about budgeting and forecasting, because as organizations, we have to have that budget in place to make sure that we understand our strategy and going forward. Are there different tools or strategies that you've taken to help collaborate with your staff to make the budgeting and forecasting process a more stable process?
I mean, the main thing is just clean bookkeeping, making sure that the month before is closed out, everything is balanced, so that way we can have a solid baseline. I always tell people with bookkeepers, what kills a bookkeeper's, joy in doing the work is rework. So anytime you got to go back and just do rework, or you're catching up, it kills momentum, it delays a lot of things, and it don't allow us to really forecast. So just making sure that everything is caught up, everything is accurate, allows us to be in position to set a budget. And then we use the QuickBooks tool where you can go in there, create a budget for every single chart of account and start to really plan and make those decisions about growth for the client, which is important. And then also about cash flow, which is probably even more important. So that's what we put in place.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about the importance of cash flow, especially in your type of business and the way you're working with different construction companies. How important to understand how your cash flow works and how do you maintain that?
Cash flow is huge. And then when you're dealing with construction, they have cash flow coming from different projects to support one organization. And so you need to have a good eye on what's happening on each project. So that way you can predict the cash flow from each project to help support the one organization which is the construction company. And so having systems in place to manage projects in the construction world, we find project management software. We tend to lean towards Buildertrend. It allows the contractor to be inside of a system that they're familiar with, the terminology, all those type of things. But it also gives us financial information that it shoots over to the accounting software so we can actually help them make decisions on how cash flow is looking. And we need to probably make some changes, or we need to do this. I can tell you, like, there's some times where I sat in a meeting and I say, hey, this job is underbilled right now. So it's either one or two things need to happen. We need to get them to pay an invoice, or we need to get the job to a phase quickly, so that way we can invoice them, or we need to stop the job because you won't have the cash flow to support paying your team to go out on this project. So spend more of your resources finishing up another project that's moving pretty smoothly while you work out some things over here. So those decisions. But if you don't have the information being captured in real time and consistently every week, reviewing it, then you can quickly lose touch of what's happening if you have like 5 projects going on at one time, 10 projects going on at one time, how well cash flow is coming from one project versus the next. So it's important to have a project management software in place to manage something like a construction company, for sure.
Yeah, so it seems like communication is extremely important to keep things flowing smoothly. Otherwise, you'll have delays, things won't get billed, you'll have things unfinished and it could come down to just the money's not moving properly.
Right. Yeah, and you got to keep an eye out on how that money should be moving, and then also be quick to make a decision about a project, so that way you can solve the problem, the cash flow problem, because cash flow is king. Working capital is king in a construction company.
Yeah, for sure. So I understand why you would do lots of education, because if you're working with, project managers who are on site, they may not be familiar with the project management software. They may just learn one aspect of it. So you have to keep that communication, keep that education there so that things can flow properly.
Yeah, because we need to know, like, hey, when you don't do this, it affects the bottom line. Or if you're behind on getting materials, like, hey, I forgot to order materials. So instead of it coming this week, it's going to come in 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you may have just pushed the project back 3 weeks. You may have now burnt through 2% of profit, because of that 3-week delay.
Mm-hmm.
So having them to understand, how the decisions made in the field affect the numbers and how much money the company makes and earns and can use to grow.
Yeah.
So it's just bringing everything full circle, making the connection.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it also helps allowing people to see the big picture.
Yeah.
Because if you delay here, then it delays the next project, which delays more income, and it's a waterfall.
It's a waterfall, a big one. A big one.
A very big one, which I'm sure causes everybody to pull their hair out and be like, ah.
Yeah, it does. It does, man. And it's easy for it to happen and hard to get out of. Very, very hard to get out of. And sometimes it takes some time. Sometimes it takes, cutting back. And sometimes you may have to cut someone's job because it's gotten that bad.
Mm-hmm.
So we just got to be careful on, construction it's a different animal.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, hey, let's just boost up marketing to sell more product. No, it's not as simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of, human touches involved. And so a lot of room for error.
Mm-hmm. Are there any examples you can share where you kind of fell into that hole, but you used, you were able to get out of it, information that you can share? Obviously, you don't have to give names or anything like that, but are there any examples of where you've seen that happen and you were able to climb out of it using some of the examples we've been sharing today?
Yeah. So one in particular was, a client who really didn't know how the cash flow on one project was affecting all of the other projects.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started to dig into that particular project, but then come to find out that there's, like I said before, a scheduling problem because people were scheduled to do certain things. And because they did not come when they were scheduled, it pushed it back a week. And then you start pushing back all the other different trades, who are coming after this one trade.
Okay.
And it's just delaying the project. So a project that was supposed to be completed in 5 months took 9-10 months to be completed. So what happened? You missed out on opportunities to do other jobs that you would have had the opportunity to do if you would have completed the project on time or, or near time.
Mm-hmm.
So by identifying that, now that put the owner in position to say, I need to look more into daily logs. I need to look more into what's happening.
Mm-hmm.
I need to have consistent meetings with the team every single week about what we should be accomplishing this week.
Mm-hmm.
And because of by them doing that, it allowed the team to rally together to say, hey, we're going to make sure we meet these goals. And then they started to just pick up pace and getting things done on time. And I mean, it's just a trickle down effect. Now the team is just growing now, because everybody finally has found they found purpose. I know why I do what I do, and how it helps the company. So
that's awesome. It's like you saw the issue. I mean, obviously there was nothing you could do. You had to get it done when it got done, but then you're just like, what steps am I going to take to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Yeah.
And that's a big part of being a leader is figuring out, okay, what happened? How can we fix this? Obviously people make mistakes. Everybody's going to make a mistake, but it's what you do after the mistake is the true test of a person, really.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely, man. You got to be able to persevere.
Mm-hmm.
Things are going to come up all the time. Business not for the faint of heart. You have to come in here expecting some sort of failure in different phases of growth, but all those things you just build upon it. And I love being a part of, as an accountant, you have a special place in a client's internal community, like their core, their nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
And so they rely on you a lot. You become confident, you become a friend in some cases, so it's just a lot that happens with that relationship. So I take it very serious when I'm accepted to be an accountant for a company and vice versa. When a client has been accepted to be a part of the G+F family, they become family, and I look out for family. I work hard for family. I make sure that we're going to go all out, to make sure that they grow and become the best company they can become.
So, speaking to that, you're talking about, making sure they feel like they're part of family, you're part of their family. What are some strategies that you take to build that trust, to make it feel like family? Because it's not something that happens day one, obviously. It's something that builds over time.
No.
So what are some strategies you use to build that trust?
Yeah, one thing is you tell them the truth. Sometimes the truth hurts. So when we first get together, I start off by doing an analysis, what we call a financial blueprint. I ask for tax returns, access to QuickBooks, loan agreements, bill of sales, closing documents, 941s, 940s, so I'm asking for a ton of information to review so that way I can tell them the truth about the condition that they're in today.
Yeah.
And trust me, those calls are always, they don't feel good. They appreciate it, but it don't feel good. And they appreciate you telling them the truth. You're not trying to sell them. You're not trying to market them. I wasn't sure when I first started doing this if I was going to lose clients because they saw how bad it was. They would just give up. Like, I don't even want to go down this route to fix it. It's just too much. I'm just going to start over or whatever it is. But it was the total opposite. They said you're the first person to tell me that I should have been an S corporation. He was the first person to tell me that I should have been paying myself a little bit more in salary because it didn't meet, the reasonable compensation requirement that the IRS wants. You was the first person to tell me that, hey, I need to have a workers' comp policy in place because the people who I thought were 1099 are really not 1099 workers, and so I need to convert them to W-2 employees and get a workers' comp policy because I'm putting my company at huge risk by having them as 1099 workers. So just those different things, just showing them, hey, I want to help you avoid the pitfalls that are out there.
Yeah.
And I don't want you looking over your shoulder. I don't want you worrying about these things. I want you to know that you're good. So by doing that, that's me giving. So part of, one of my core values is we give. I have 3 of them. We smile, we learn, we give. And so we're going to smile because if I'm not smiling, then that means you think your situation is really bad. And that it's unfixable, right? So no, I'm smiling because it can be fixed. Everything that I'm hearing, I'm listening to you say, it can be fixed. And so I'm not worried about that at all. And then we learn, that you're hiring an accounting team that's constantly learning new softwares, learning how to do things better in your industry. That's why I picked the industry. I niched down the construction so that way my mind can only be focused on the construction industry because I want to know what other people are doing, what other accountants are doing, what the industry is saying, how does it affect the accounting part? So I'm digging all into that. And sometimes I'm looking into stuff that doesn't have anything related to the finances, but it affects the construction industry. And I want to know about it. So, and they see that and they like, man, he cares because he's telling me things that my other accountant couldn't tell me because they don't serve the construction industry the way that, G+F serves the industry. So that's how you separate yourself. That's how you start to build that relationship. They start to gain trust. And then, like I said, I'm a constant giver. I'm just not a person who just takes from the clients. I like to show my appreciation in different ways. So I give back to them. I think about them on birthdays. I think about them during the holidays, and do special things for them. So that's how you build that relationship.
Wow. I mean, that's like a masterclass in just building relationships in general, because if you want to meet somebody, you don't sit there and just take. It's a give and take in any relationship. So whether it's a personal relationship or a business relationship, I think what you just said there, is smile, give, or smile, learn, and give, right?
Yep.
Those are 3 tenets that anybody should apply, whether in business or anywhere else, because if you're sitting there always looking angry all the time, it's hard to be approachable.
It's hard.
Not that we have to fake being happy. But when you're sharing things and you're trying to connect with people, be mindful of your face.
Exactly. You should be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how I do it.
That's great. I mean, I think that's a wonderful thing. And, and I think you hit the nail on the head, especially when it comes to learning. As accountants, always have to be aware of what's happening in your industry, be aware of what's happening in other industries, how they could affect your industry, but also looking at best practices in other industries, saying, hey, can I apply that here in mine?
Right.
And it's one of those ways where it's great to, whether it's, you're connected through an accounting organization like IMA or other ones, you can connect with other accountants who may be in other industries, take continuing education classes, constantly learning, because otherwise you'll just stay stagnant. And if you stay stagnant, you can't grow.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. Stagnant. I'm allergic to being stagnant. I don't know how to be stagnant.
Yeah. Well, I don't think any of us should be stagnant. And I think everybody should take on that stance of I'm allergic to being stagnant. And that's the way to keep growing.
For sure.
Yeah. Well, Timothy, I thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great getting to know you and chatting with you. And I hope our audience enjoys this conversation as much as I have.
Man, I enjoyed it, Adam. Thank you so much for having me. I hope that, people gain something from this for sure.
This has been Count Me In, IMA's podcast, providing you with the latest perspectives of thought leaders from the accounting and finance profession. If you like what you heard and you'd like to be counted in for more relevant accounting and finance education, visit IMA's website at www.imanet.org.